Advanced Bunker Texturing, Part 5. This is CE Sim Golf. We're going to look at doing those very extra special rake lines and then just a few final thoughts. And I think I've decided I'm going to just package this Photoshop file and maybe some of the customs and brushes, and I'll try and find a way to just distribute those so we have something for everyone to start with playing around on, because I know it's kind of hard to see even on the monitor, on the video, you know, what the settings are and what I'm doing. So let's go into Photoshop. So I'm starting with my base file. This is a clean one. There are no rake lines. I do have my things like footprints and all those layers. They're in here, they're just hidden. I'm also using Sand Base, which one is this? Sand Base 1, I have it named. This one has no rake lines in it. Here's the one with rake lines that we were using in the other videos. This one has none. You can add your own rake lines to either base. There's an extra step if you're using one that already has tiling rake lines. Let's start with the clean one. First step is to create a custom brush, because we want something that looks like rake tines. This is the same process if you have watched the video, shoot, I think it was Masta that did a video showing how to do cart paths on your sat shader. And so this is the same kind of principle. So we're going to do a new file, and we don't need this to be very large. We want it to be tall and skinny. We're just going to do a width of, we'll say 50 by 250. And we need this to be grayscale. I'm just doing black and white for this brush. Alright, zoom in. Now we want to have a circle, not that big. Let's go for something in the, yeah, that's probably good. We have our black color. Now we're just going to draw a vertical line of dots representing our tines on our rake. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be spaced exactly. I leave about as much white in between as there is black, maybe a little less. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Try and make it close. Alright. I'm going to fit one more. Nope, not going to fit one more. Okay, that's fine. Now we're going to do a selection box. We're going to grab just those. You could crop if you want. Now we're going to go to Edit and Define Brush Preset. We're going to name it Bunker Rake 2 because I've already got one. You can just name it whatever you want. It's 240 pixels. That's the height of it. It's important that it's vertical, not horizontal. I'll explain in a sec. Now if we go select our brush, and when you right click to select which one you want, if you go all the way to the bottom of your list, you're going to see it. Here's our 240 pixel tall brush. Now it doesn't look like circles, it's stretching it in that display, but you can see over here, and you can see right here, it matches what we just drew. Alright, back to our base. We have a black color selected. I just made a blank layer 1. Now if we draw, it looks like a rake. Problem is, what if we want our rake to go different directions? That's not natural, right? That's not going to work. So we want the brush palette or panel. If you don't see it, you can. It's underneath Window, Brush, and we're going to use Shape Dynamics. This is the same process that was used for making cart tracks across your rough and fairway in the other sat shader video. I'm going to delete stuff. Now, if we have direction underneath angle jitter, direction, we want a 0% on that. What this means is randomize it. So if I had, 100% jitter, as I drew, it's going to wildly jump all over. We want that at 0, and we want it to follow our direction. So angle jitter direction. Now, whichever direction we start moving when we first click, it will keep the brush oriented that way. So if I start click and move down this time, the brush moves down. If I start going that way, it'll go that way. If I curve it, it stays and follows the curve. There's a little bit of, you can see it causes a little bit of a skipping and jitter in there that way. I don't mind that. There's probably a way to fix that. Honestly, I think that looks kind of natural. I wonder if that has something to do with the smoothing on. Not really. But you can play with some of those choices. But this is going to give us our rake pattern. Now the key to making it look realistic is I have discovered using 2 different layers on top of each other, both with a bevel and emboss effect. I've kind of got a love-hate with bevel and emboss. It's been around forever in Photoshop. It can look really cheesy. It's something that people use incorrectly a lot, or as I like to call it, it's the Comic Sans of Photoshop effects. But it works for this if you use the right blending layers. So on my Rake Lines Dark layer, I have it set to darker color blending. So drop down, darker color, opacity around 70%. Then underneath that I have Rake Lines Light. I have that set to color dodge, which lightens the texture behind it. I've also used screen. Either one is good. And I only have that at 50%. I'm going to start on my Rake Lines Dark. I'm going to select a color that is a dark brown. I'm going to go a little darker than that. Not black. It's just a nice deep color. Now I'm gonna draw a rake line. Now you see I've got some kind of weird start and stop position there. That's really not too big a deal. Oh, I had my shape dynamics turned on. Alright, so I'm going to turn my shape dynamics on. Make sure I have my correct brush selected. And then I'm going to draw my rake line. You can see it's a little choppy. The beginning and the end have a little bit of choppiness. What you can easily do, select an eraser, and I like to use an eraser that's wild. I don't know if you can see the shape of this. It's a crazy, wild, random, splotchy shape. So I'm going to use that. I'm just going to delete out the ends of these because they just look weird. Alright. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to select the whole thing, or if you want, just select your rake lines, copy them, so Control C, select your light layer, and we're going to paste them in this layer, but if you just paste, they're going to paste in the middle of the layer. You don't want that. We're going to go up to Edit, Paste Special, Paste in Place. Did you see them pop in there? So they pasted right on top of where we copied them from. Now, we're going to move them just a little bit, offset them. I'm going to go down just a few pixels. Not sure I like down there. So I'm just trying to move them off so they're a little bit different. There, that's pretty good. Let's look at what our effects are for bevel and emboss. So on our dark lines, double click on effects. I'll post a bigger version of this to show settings. This is what I have it set for the dark layer. And again, you can play with all this, but this is what I have found, what I like. You can change some of these settings to give you a harder edge or a softer edge. I have found I really like using the inner bevel. I think that looks the best. And this is going to control your darkness and depth. You don't need very much. I've been using 3 and 3. Your depth percentage, that's going to lighten it up quite a bit. Anyway, these are the settings I've been using. There's different profiles for how the bevel looks and behaves. Like that. I like that one. Alright. Let's look at the light one. It's a tiny bit different. Again, got inner bevel, 3 and 3. Nope, I was wrong. We have the same settings there. But mess around with them. See if you can find something that looks even better. All right. Now the final thing that I do here is I take that weird shaped eraser and I crank it up to something, and I stamp erase just a few random spots. I just kind of come in here. I don't go overboard, but I hit a few places. I go to the light layer, same areas. And I'm just kind of erasing. I'm just trying to make it look not perfect. That's all. All right. So that's how I've been doing it. You can go back in. You can do, now if you do crossing ones, you get this weird look here, which is not ideal. The other thing you can do is you can copy these layers and do each, if you have thumbs that are gonna, if you have lines that you want to cross, it doesn't look amazing. That's maybe where I'd go in and erase one of them so it looks like one of the rake lines crosses more. But anyway, you can, and you're going to get a lot of depth. I'm just playing with the percentage of viewing this. A lot of the depth is also going to come from your bump map, your normal map. So when you go in and create that, you don't have to go too dark on these rake lines because you're going to see a lot more of that depth that creates when you add a normal map. So that's the way I've been doing it. You can also just do some of the first bunkers I did, and I'll show some example pictures at the end of the video. You can also just do lines. I mean, you can select a color that's just a little darker version of whatever sand you've got. Drawing lines in a slightly darker color, I mean, you do get the effect, especially if you just use some sort of layer blending that will show the texturing through from behind. Something like a multiply, and then you drop it down. So you get a darker feel, but you can see the sand texture behind it. That can work well too. That's just using that brush and just drawing it. I did do that on the first few bunkers. I'll probably go back and redo them. I like this other method better, but let's look at how we would do this on a texture that already has rake lines, because I said it has one extra step. If I disable this base, and that leaves us with our tiled rake base. So you're going to get a lot of competing rake lines here. You can also see using this one that our rake lines are far too large to blend in and look natural with the smaller ones in our background. So I'm going to select both our rake line. I don't need the copy. I need this and this. I'm going to right click. I'm going to link layers. Now if I move one, nope, I selected the wrong ones. All right, so I'm going to select all three of our rake line layers that we've created here. I'm going to right click and do link layers. Now, if I move one layer, they all move together slowly. Now, I'm going to transform. I'm going to shrink them all. Try and get them to match up with the rake lines in the background a little better. That's pretty good. Turn off that one. All right, so they kind of disappear. You don't really see them. They don't pop because they're competing with the rake lines and the texture behind. You can see the texture behind is showing through all over the place. It doesn't, it's distracting and it's unnatural. You know, if you rake over the top of rake lines, you're not going to see multiple rake lines, right? You're going to just see the one on top. So what you're going to do, I have this layer in here called Sand Rake Mask. It is made of the same base texture that we used on the first part of this video, this non-raked bunker. So if we put that behind it, you can see, voila, it's easy to see our rake lines again, right? So there's a couple methods that we can do this. We want that only to be behind where we have raked. So you can either erase everything that's not there, or you can, you know, that's probably the easiest way. So I'm going to start just by selecting kind of around where my rake lines are, and then invert the selection and delete. So now we just have a little bit left. I'm going to grab an eraser with a soft edge, and I'm going to come through here. And this does not have to be perfect either, but I'm going to delete around, maybe into my rake lines just a little bit, because I don't really want this to show outside of my rake lines, because that would be weird. I'm just going to erase around them like that. Maybe I can speed up the video while I do this very slow process of erasing. I need a little smaller one to get in here, the tight spots. And it doesn't need to be perfect. We just want it to mainly be behind the rake lines we created. All right, now our rake lines pop a little more, and you can see them. Like if I turn off the mask that I've made behind it, see how distracting it is, and that just adds that extra level of visual. So there you go. Again, same process we would go through that we did in the other ones. After you've done this work, you'll have to save your file. You'll have to take it into that SM4 software, create a new normal map, and everything else should update automatically in Unity. Before I call this series done, I want to go back to the original bunker we were working on and show you one more thing that I did. So here's the file we worked on the first few videos. What I did here was I went to the shape of my map so I can see where the edges are. And we've been working with this in this rake lines video. We've been working with our other version of sand, the one that doesn't have a texture, or a rake line, I mean. Of course it has a texture. And if you look at, if I turn that off here, I took my rake line, the one that we've been working with, and I erased it all the way around where we have the border. And I did that so that on the sides, I'm gonna erase a little more there because I got a little hard edge. So I erased it because I wanted to show through a second sand, and that would be this other one without any rake lines. I want that to show on the outside of the bunker. So when we look at it in Unity, you can see that on the slopes on the outside edge of the bunker, especially in here, oops, through the bunker again. You can see on the outside edges, only the center of the bunker is raked. I just kind of another level of customization and realism. So just a thought I had. So there we go. That's the rake lines. All right, I'm going to include this file. I'll put it in a link to it in the description, and I'll add some already pre-done raked areas and let you guys play around with it. Thanks for watching.